Is the universe infinite? We can peer billions of years into the distant past as light from the farthest reaches of creation finally reaches us. But they aren't the farthest reaches. We can see more and more of a universe that grows larger with every moment, the darkness receding to reveal more and more. Will this happen forever? And what if we just keep seeing endless amounts of galaxies and space opening up to our eyes every year? And what about the Big Bang? Can something infinite have a beginning? Do we even know what infinity looks like? What do we know or even can know about infinite things? How did we even come up with an idea of true endlessness? Or did we discover it? How could we even begin to explore it? Welcome back to Serious Science, and this is all we know about infinity. Let's start with the basics necessary to understanding what we mean by infinity. There are several types of infinites. The one that springs most commonly to mind is an infinite space with infinite dimensions, like a room that you could never reach the walls, ceiling, or floor of, even if you traveled towards them faster than light forever. Another kind is an infinity of possibility, where one thing can become an infinite amount of permutations into another thing or things, like a particle that can make up any kind of atom or substance. Another kind is the infinity of surface, where something can travel for eternity across the surface of an object and never reach an end. These names for different types of infinities are entirely of my own creation, and there may be better ones out there, but I was unable to find much by way of official naming. The most basic kind is the infinity of surface, as you're probably standing on something that has this property already, unless you're watching this from a space station or capsule, in which case 1, I'm impressed you can in the first place, and 2, you're my hero. The Earth is not quite spherical, but just enough to be imperceptibly so to an outside observer. You could walk, fly, or sail all the way around to the place you started from, and still be able to continue, eternally if you were so inclined. You can also trace a pathway around the entirety of a Mobius strip, something you can make yourself at home with nothing but paper. The Mobius strip is also a special case of this effect over that of a sphere, in that this is a one-sided object. Drawing a line across its surface will end with you returning to the point you started from, as the surface twists in around itself and becomes one. Permutational infinities are a bit trickier to define, but the simplest example is how particles operate. An electron has the capability to burst into a pair of photons, which have the capability to become antimatter-matter particle pairs similar to what we see occurring in the quantum foam, where similar antimatter-matter pairs are generated out of nothing, recombine, and vanish again. This one electron has the capability to become an infinite amount of permutations, as these particles split, combine, and recombine to form other types of particles, all beginning with 1. But the most interesting infinity of all is the spatial, and the one we will be focusing on today. The discussion for such a space all began with the question of whether our universe is infinite or not. Why do we think it could be in the first place? Doesn't everyone agree that the Big Bang happened and was the beginning of our universe? If so, then how can something that was once incredibly tiny suddenly become infinite in size? In truth, we have no idea yet. How can someone from within something infinite begin to map its size? Even if they spent all the time that our universe is predicted to exist for exploring an infinite space, they would not have explored even a trillionth of a percent of that space, as however much they've seen, there is an infinite amount more that they haven't. As I mentioned in the intro, there are more and more distant galaxies we can see with every passing minute as their light reaches us, our sphere of awareness growing at the speed of light outwards from Earth and never seeming to reach an end. Well, the shape of an object can quickly make its dimensions have infinite properties. A circle on paper has a set width and height, but if transformed into a sphere, has an infinite travelability along its surface. We often think of the universe as a flat object, and several of our experiments have suggested this to be the case, but then again, the horizon of our own planet seems flat. It's only when you step back and get a bigger picture that you see the immensity of our world for the sphere it really is, and this may be the case for what we have found by studying our own seemingly flat area of the universe. The exact shape of our universe is still not entirely known. We know that we exist in a flatter region of it, but cannot see farther than that. But as I mentioned, the shape of something can induce infinite aspects, and in the case of our Mobius strip, a flat piece of paper can be folded on itself to become an infinite one-sided object. What if something similar is happening with the geometry of our universe? While it's not likely that we exist on a massive Mobius strip, our universe could still fold around or into itself to create an infinite amount of space, and could do so while still having a beginning point. The infinity of time is entirely different to an infinity of space, and we have solid predictions that point towards our universe having an end. This means that our universe could have infinite space while having a finite lifetime. But how does an infinite space come into being in the first place? Our universe could achieve this by being a sphere, where the inside or outside of that sphere would contain the surface area we know as space. This sphere may even invert on itself, like our Mobius strip, in a more higher dimensional fashion, creating a sphere with only one side upon which rests the universe. This would mean that if you traveled in a straight line through space, you would eventually return to the spot you had left, albeit over an incredibly long period of time. If a sphere or similarly infinitely shaped object was truly the shape of our universe, it could also explain how it had a beginning. Astronomers will often use an inflating balloon to show how our universe is expanding, with the surface of the balloon containing space that moves away from every other part as it inflates. But as we look backwards in time and the universe collapses back to the Big Bang, the only thing that changes is the size of that balloon. The surface of the smaller balloon can still be circumnavigated infinitely, but can be done so faster and without encountering much space. As we continue this trend towards the Big Bang, our balloon universe becomes smaller and smaller, while still having an infinite surface until the sphere becomes infinitely small and disappears. The infinity of the space available to travel around begins as soon as the universe does. Something with infinite surface now has a beginning in time. But what did our balloon expand into? Was there anything around it before we began to exist? This is one of the hardest questions to answer. How could we see anything outside our universe or detect more space than what we are confined to, especially since it is thought that nothing can enter our universe from, well, whatever is outside, even if something outside of our universe does exist? We have to consider the end of time in order to begin theorizing about this possibility. The end of our universe, as we currently predict, is kind of a misnomer. As we understand it now, our universe will continue accelerating outwards from every other part while radiation, photons, and matter cool to absolute zero, and begin breaking down into their most basic parts, eventually vanishing, as there is not enough energy for them to exist. After this happens and the last black hole disintegrates, there will be absolutely nothing within an inconceivably large universe. At that point, it will officially end, as there is nothing occurring for time to have any meaning. The universe will still be there, perhaps continuing to expand and perhaps not, as it is thought that matter or dark matter within our universe is the driving factor that causes expansion. If this is the case, the universe would stop expanding and either freeze in place or collapse inwards. The balloon deflates. Time moves differently depending on the speed at which matter interacts with space. If there is no matter to interact with anything, time would become infinitely fast or slow, infinitely both, and entirely meaningless. This may be the case for what exists outside our universe, a sort of infinity of time instead of space that separates our universe from the nothingness. But then again, there would have to be space there for this to be the case. Perhaps this still may be true, and we expanded into a space that already existed. We have no proof that our universe was the first and only to exist, even when considering that other universes may exist while not occupying the space that we currently do. There may have been a universe before ours that met its end and continued expanding, while an event occurred within the dead space to create our universe. In that case, we are expanding into the space left over from a previous universe, created by that now long dead event. But how did that first universe come to be? Are there other universes out there? What would exist between ours and theirs? We may never know if we cannot find a way to interact with these outside spaces. Humanity has only just begun to study our place in the cosmos, a few thousand years compared to the almost 14 billion the universe has existed and the many trillions it will continue to exist. We have only now begun to explore, and to say we will never know if something exists or not is presumptuous. The only infinities we know of now are the ones on surfaces, in particles, or in our math. But as we learn and explore, we may find that we have far more space available to us than could ever be possibly imagined. Humanity could be given the chance to become inhabitants of the infinite, an endless empire where the only important resource is time. The possibilities for our future are often endless. Perhaps they may literally be infinite. Thank you all for watching.